Hey guys, this is the review over the first two lessons. And so we're just going to really talk about nothing new, just kind of putting everything together. So the first thing, like after you factor, if you have it already in factored form, we're going to solve each for x. So we're going to set each piece equal to 0. And so I'm going to have x minus 3 is equal to 0 and x plus 4 is equal to 0. And if I add 3 to both sides, I'm going to get x is equal to 3. And if I subtract 4 to both sides, I'm going to get x is equal to negative 4. Over here, when you do the same thing, so 2x minus 5 is equal to 0 and x minus 1 is equal to 0. I end up getting x is equal to 5 over 2 and x is equal to 1. Make sure if you have an x on the outside, set that equal to 0 as well. So that's an actual answer. And then this one is going to be x is equal to negative 1/3 after I set it equal to 0. And this one here is going to be x is equal to positive 7 over 4. So that one actually has 3 answers. Okay, yesterday we talked about solving by square roots, and so we're going to do the same thing again. Notice what's going on here. So if this is like in standard form, think about standard form. These are missing a bx, always, always, when it's in this form. So that kind of tells us that I'm going to do solve by square roots versus like factoring. So the first thing I'm going to do here is subtract 13 from both sides. And then I get equals 3. You want to still divide by 3. So you want that x squared by itself. As soon as you do the square root, as soon as you put your pen and do the square root, think plus or minus. So it's going to be x equals 1, x equals negative 1. So this one's the same way. So I'm going to subtract 12. So x squared is equal to 4. When I take the square root, remember square root, plus or minus, so x is equal to 2, x is equal to negative 2. Okay, this is the other form. So when you have kind of like a vertex form type of situation going on, this is also a big hint that you're going to do solve by square roots. So the first thing I'm going to do here is divide by 5, and I'm going to get x minus 3 squared is equal to 12. I can't get into this parentheses until I take the square root. So remember what I just said, square root, you're going to think plus or minus. So these cancel, and I get x minus 3 is equal to positive square root of 12, and x minus 3 is equal to negative square root of 12. But the square root of 12, I can actually simplify that in my calculator as 2 square root of 3. Like that. So I'm going to add 3. And I end up getting, I'll do this in a different color. I end up getting x is equal to 3 plus 2 square root of 3. And x is equal to 3 minus 2 square root of 3. Okay, let's do this one. This one has this guy right here, so we have to get rid of him first. So I'm going to add the 3 and then divide by 4. I honestly, this is why I'm keeping this blank. I don't care what's in there until I get down to here. And so I'm going to take the square root. And again, as soon as you take the square root, you're going to do 1 plus and 1 minus. So the square root of 9 is 3. So I'm going to say x plus 1 is equal to 3, and x plus 1 is equal to negative 3. So I have x equals 2 and x equals negative 4. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and focus on factoring. So all of these just have an x squared, so I can do this. These have numbers in front of the x squared, so I'm going to have to do this and the box or factor by grouping or whatever. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to multiply these two together and put it on the top. And then I'm going to put the b right here on the bottom. So I need 2 factors of 63 that kind of feel like they're subtracting to give me 2. So 7 and 9, and then I want this to be a negative 2, so 7 plus negative 9. Okay, if there is nothing in front of the x squared, we can just take this and go straight to our factors. That's kind of nice. So I'm going to say x plus 7 and x minus 9. And then set each equal to 0. So I get x is equal to negative 7, x is equal to 9. Okay, let's do this one. So notice that this one is not set equal to 0. If it's not set equal to 0 for these, you're going to want to set it equal to 0. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So let's see, 30, negative 11. So 2 factors of 30 that add to give me negative 11. Negative 6, negative 5. So I have negative 6 times negative 5 is positive 30. Negative 6 plus negative 5 is negative 11. So that works. So now I'm going to put it into my factored form. So I'm going to get x minus 6 and x minus 5. And when I solve for it, I get x equals 6 and x equals 5. Over here, notice these two are both over here. So I'm going to combine like terms and set it equal to 0. So I have x squared minus 10x plus 9 is equal to 0. I'm going to do, let's see, 9 and negative 10. So that's going to be negative 9 and, positive 1. No, negative 1. Sorry, negative 1. And then I'm going to take this and set it equal to 0. So x minus 9, x minus 1, x is equal to 9, x is equal to 1. So it looks like that. Okay, down here, these have a number in front of it. So I'm gonna still multiply these together, but now I actually have a number here. So 3 times 21 is 63. And then I have 16. So 2 factors of 63 that add to give me 16. Let's see, 7 and 9. Okay, so now we're going to have to take this a step further. We can't just like jump up and do that. So I'm going to say this first term goes here, so 3x squared. This term goes here, 21. And then this term I'm not going to use. I'm going to use these two as my x terms. So it doesn't matter where you put it. I'm going to put it like that. Okay, so I'm going to factor out something nice that they have in common. So like here, if I look at those two, that is just an x. And now it's a puzzle. So x times something gives me 3x squared. So this has to be a 3x. And if that's a 3x, 3x times something gives me 9x. So that's a 3. X times something gives me 7x. That's a 7. So I have my two terms, or two binomials. So 3x plus 7, and then x plus 3. And then when I set them equal to 0, this is x equals negative 7/3, and this is x equals negative 3. Yeah. Okay. This one over here, I have to add the 6 over. So I'm going to get 5x squared plus 17x plus 6 is equal to 0. And then again, I have to multiply those together. So I'm going to get 30 and 17. So 2 factors of 30 that add to give me 17 are 2 and 15. And I'm going to make my box. So I have 5x squared right there, and then right there, 6. These are going to go in the other two boxes. So 2x and 5x. So let's see. If I take out an x here, that means this has to be 5x. If that's 5x, it has to be 1. Sorry, that's a 15x there. So if that's 5x, this has to be 3x. And 3x, 3. Goodness. Okay, and then 3 times 2 is 6. Let's see, x times 2 is 2x. Okay, that works. Okay, so I'm going to have my two factors as 5x plus 2 and x plus 3 equals 0. I'm going to set each equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 2/5 and x is equal to negative 3. Okay, let's go to this last one. So again, I'm going to do my x. So 30, 11, let's see, 6 and 5. And I'm going to make my x. So I have 2x squared, 15. Let's see, these are my x's. So 6x and 5x. Let's see. These have an x in common, so that has to be 2x. That's 2x, that has to be 3, and that has to be 5. So these are my two factor pairs. I'm going to set each one equal to 0, so x is equal to -3, and x is equal to -5/2. For this next page, these are going to be all mixed up, and this is how it's going to be on any like test or quiz that you're going to take. So they're not going to be like in a certain order. So we kind of have to figure out like which one we're going to square root and which ones we're going to factor. So again, this is kind of like vertex form, so I know I'm going to square root that. This has an x term, so I'm going to factor that. This does not have an x term, so I'm going to square root that. This does, so I'm going to factor that. This does, I'm going to factor that. And this does not, so I'm going to square root it. So if you're really good at square root, just start there. If if you're really good at factoring, start there. Like do all of them that you're comfortable with. So this one I'm going to divide by 5, and I get x plus 1 squared is equal to 9. And I'm going to take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root of both sides, that's when I have to separate it up into plus and minus. So when I subtract 1, I get 2. And if I subtract 1 over here, I get -4. Sorry, why? Okay. This one, I'm going to have to add 4x and subtract 80. So I get, let's see, x squared minus 2x minus 80 is equal to 0. You always have to set it equal to 0 first when you factor. There's nothing to multiply it by here, so -80, -2. So it's going to be 8 and -10. And I can literally go from here to here. So I'm going to say x plus 8 and x minus 10. And that gives me an answer of x equals -8 and x is equal to 10. This one, so I'm going to square root it. And again, this feels like very similar, but it doesn't have an x, so I have to treat it differently. So I'm going to subtract that 14 over, and I get 12. And then I'm going to divide by 3, so I get x squared is equal to 4. When I take the square root, that's what I'm going to do. The x equals 2 and x equals -2 for my answer. Okay, this one I'm going to factor. Let's see, I'm going to subtract that 6 over. When I subtract the 6 over, I get a -24, equals 0. And the first thing that I notice, I just want to make it easier on myself. Like I can multiply these together, but that's going to be like a big number for my x. But I can also divide everything by 6. That's just going to make that number smaller. So when I do that, I get n squared minus 3n minus 4 is equal to 0. So it's going to be -4, -3, -4 and 1. So I'm going to say n minus 4, n plus 1. And so I get n is equal to 4 and n is equal to -1. Okay, over here we're also factoring. This one's pretty straightforward. So 15 and 8, 3 and 5. So I get x plus 3, x plus 5. So x is equal to -3, x is equal to -5. Okay, this one is a square root because there's no a term. So I get 3a squared equals 18. And when I divide by 3, I get a squared equals 6. I can't take the square root of 6 and get a nice answer, so I'm just going to keep it as a square root. And I'm going to get a equals +6 and a equals -6. Okay, on your test, these down here are going to be test questions. And so we're looking for where a mistake was made. And so it's actually made right here. So we don't want to distribute that 2. We want to square root it. And so when we square root that, we're going to have x minus 2 is equal, x minus 2 squared is equal to 9. And then I'm going to take the square root. So that's our first step. So I'm going to get x minus 2 is equal to 3. And x minus 2 is equal to negative 3. So when I add 2, I'm going to get 5. And when I add 2 over here, I get negative 1. Okay, down here, you're going to see factoring. Your answer is going to look like this and not like that. So I'm going to divide by x, and I'm going to get x squared minus 4 on the inside. And this is one of those that you can take the square root of, and I end up with x minus 2 and x plus 2. Over here, this is the exact same one, except one is plus and one is minus. So I'm going to still take out a GCF of x, but this time I'm going to have x squared plus 4. When you have an x squared plus 4, you can't take it any further, so this is your answer. Over here, the GCF is x squared. So I'm going to take out an x squared, and I'm going to have x minus 4, and that's your final answer there. And that's it.